Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing the Master Premier Cup team that helped me reach Legend rank for Season 15 of Go Battle League. The team consists of a Magnezone on the lead, Waterfall Primarina as the save switch, and Gyarados as the closer. The Magnezone Waterfall Primarina core is insanely strong at the moment. Magnezone has massive play into the meta, as probably one of the most common cores out there is Florges plus Gyarados, and Waterfall Primarina is an incredibly good generalist. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out the 10-0 run to hit Legend using this team. Hopping to the first match, picking up a pretty okay lead Magnezone into Metagross. My opponent save switches into a Shadow Snorlax. I don't have a perfect response to a Snorlax save switch, so I'm going to stay in with the Magnezone, fire off a Wild Charge, and now I'm going to send in Primarina. I am ABA strong to Metagross, with both the Magnezone and the Gyarados doing quite well, so honestly I don't even really need switch here. My goal is basically just to get some usage out of the Primarina so I can keep it away from the Metagross. I'm able to connect with the Disarming Voice. Opponent is going to fire off the last second Body Slam to take switch advantage, but honestly I am perfectly okay with that. I'm going to send in the Magnezone. I'm going to commit the shield here. Opponent, turns out they only had a Body Slam. I should have been counting better. Opponent sends in Primarina, and as you can see, so much of the meta is weak to Magnezone. Waterfalls are adding up quite a bit here, but I can shield the Disarming Voice, and now I'm over 2 Wild Charges. I'm going for Wild Charge number 1 here. That's going to KO the Primarina. And now I'm looking to switch into the Gyarados when my opponent sends in the Metagross. In comes the Metagross. Honestly, I should have Wild Charged it as soon as they brought it in and then switched, but either way, I should still be in a winning position here. Meteor Mash is going to connect. They're going to need a second Meteor Mash to KO, and I'm going straight for the crunch here. This will hit for super effective damage. Opponent is going to no shield there, and I'm going to be able to make it to the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail would threaten the KO here. By not throwing the Wild Charge when they were switch locked, they now have the potential to catch. They do not have back-to-back moves here, so all I have to do is bring in the Magnezone, wait a turn, watch for the catch, which they go for, and the opponent concedes the match. Picking up a decent lead in the next match, Magnezone into Dragonite. One thing I really like about Magnezone is that it honestly doesn't have a lot of negative leads that it can see. Obviously, Excadrill is absolutely awful, Haxorus not great either, but the good news is, outside of that, it's pretty much neutral to positive against most anything you can see. So I'm able to get the Wild Charge up, deal a ton of damage to the Dragonite, save switch into the Waterfall Primarina, which is answered by the Metagross. I'm going for the Moonblast here. Moonblast connects, and as you can see, Waterfall Primarina puts up a heck of a fight versus Metagross. Metagross has a ton of energy here. They're firing off the Meteor Mash. I don't want to have to shield, so I'm going to send in Gyarados. Gyarados is going to be resisting the Meteor Mash here. If I sent in that Magnezone and tried to Spark down, they would make a Quake, and I'd have to go to a shield deficit. So now I have a bit of energy. My opponent now going to send in Gholdengo. Gholdengo, definitely a very cool pick. I'm firing off the crunch. My opponent commits the shield. Unfortunately, I do not get a debuff. They're firing off the Shadow Ball here, and I have a decision to make. I am going to trust in the Magnezone, just saving all shields for the Magnezone, saying, you know what, I believe that Magnezone can clutch here. They're firing off the Shadow Ball. This I do absolutely have to shield, as it would be lethal. I'm looking to overfarm quite a bit, and I'm going for the Wild Charge here. Is this going to be enough to KO? Wild Charge does not. Magnezone gets the Spark down and leaves with enough energy to be able to win this game. Dragonite does not have the back-to-back moves, and I'm almost at the back-to-back Wild Charges, and Magnezone just so deadly, making it to Wild Charge number 1, getting the final shield, and at Wild Charge number 2, that's going to be taking care of the Dragonite, and that's a good game. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Magnezone into Florges. You love to see it. And the opponent is staying in, which means they are probably ABA weak to Magnezone. Again, part of the reason why I really wanted to run Magnezone on the lead is so many teams are being run that are ABA weak to it, so your opponent is forced to stay in a bad matchup. They go for the Disarming Voice. Magnezone is able to tank. I continue to farm. They can go for a Moonblast here, but again, Magnezone will be able to hang on. Moonblast connects. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back Wild Charges, as Mirror Shot would not be enough to KO. I now get Switch or both shields. They get KO. They send in Haxorus. I'm going to pivot into the Primarina, and now we see why they did not want to switch. They have a Waterfall Primarina of their own in the back. So the opponent running an ABA Fairy team. and that does not appreciate seeing Magnezone. I'm able to grab an early shield, I go for the Disarming Voice, unfortunately I lose CMP. The good news is if this is a Disarming Voice, which it is, that's not going to KO, I'm able to withstand that damage and go for a Disarming Voice of my own. Looking for the farm down here, they leave with a move, but guess who wins CMP? It's Magnezone. I have the Mirror Shot banked, I'm going to be getting rid of that Primarina. I can now send in the shield advantage Gyarados, and the opponent concedes the match. We see same leads in the next match, Magnezone into Florges. Opponent is going to immediately save switch into Shadow Snorlax, and since I don't have a great response, I am going to stay in here and fire off the Wild Charge. I'm going to stay in until I can land a Wild Charge, and then I can send in Gyarados, and Gyarados should be in a pretty comfortable position. They do have a lot of energy here, thankfully not going to be the Skull Bash, it is just going to be the Body Slam. I did see quite a few Skull Bash Snorlaxes on the save switch, and man, that Shadow Skull Bash is incredibly deadly. I'm not going to be able to get the farm down, so to guarantee that I can keep switch, I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail. Odds are, if they're save switching Snorlax, they have a much harder check to the Magnezone in the back, probably either a Haxorus or an Excadrill, so keeping switch is absolutely imperative. I will get Fairy Wind farm down, but I can now wait the timer, send in Magnezone, and it's Gholdengo in the back. Very interesting. So this opponent actually not running a hard check to Magnezone, which is really nice for me. I can just send in Primarina here, and I'm just not going to shield the Primarina. Primarina tanks the Shadow Ball here, and it should be a simultaneous KO if they try and farm down. Gholdengo thinks about it, they realize it's going to be a simul, and they're forced to fire off energy. But all this does is just give free energy to Magnezone. Magnezone now with a ton of energy. I'm just going to be going straight Mirror Shot versus the Florges and looking for the attack drop. Mirror Shot connects. We do not see the attack drop. I'm going to let this go. I tank whatever's thrown here. Opponent goes for the Moonblast. That is not going to cut it. And from here, I can very comfortably make the triple Mirror Shot that will ensure the victory. I'm already at 2 more. That's going to grab the first shield. I do get the attack debuff. At this point, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be shielding whatever they throw here. And I should be able to make it to the back-to-back Mirror Shots, and that's going to guarantee victory. Again, Magnezone just absolutely incredible in this meta, making yet another Mirror Shot. Get that Florges out of here, and that's a good game. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Magnezone into Metagross. This opponent choosing to stay in this matchup. Metagross can stay in here, and Magnezone will typically have to give up a shield first. And the nice thing is you are going to pretty significantly outpace the Metagross. They bait with the Meteor Mash, and I'm returning fire with the Wild Charge. This is not lethal, so they can tank one, but I will be able to get my shield back. I'm going to farm up and fire off the Wild Charge just before they make it to the Meteor Mash. I'm now 4 stages debuffed, throw 1, the switch, and the catch of the Meteor Mash onto Gyarados. This is terrific. They're now energy dry, and any one of my Pokemon should be able to fast move them down. My opponent sends in Gyarados. I'm going for the Crunch. Crunch will deal some solid damage onto my opponent. Crunch connects. Do we see a debuff? We do not. They're going to have to throw here, and we see the immaculate counting from my opponent, firing off that Aqua Tail a single turn before I make it to mine. But the good news is even though they have energy, I have an absolute wall to Gyarados' energy with Waterfall Primarina. They go for the Crunch. They do not get the debuff. Primarina gets the Waterfall farm down. And let's see what they have in the back. They have Haxorus. I just have to avoid a catch onto the Metagross, and I should be in a pretty good situation here. Disarming Voice will be shielded. Haxorus continuing to farm up a ton of energy here. They're probably going to look to catch, and they do. In comes the Metagross. We get the farm down, and I get to leave with the Moonblast. I end up denying them, but it's not going to matter. Even at -1, Moonblast would easily KO, and that's a good game. Magnezone sees yet another good lead in the next match, leading into a Primarina. My opponent save switches into Snorlax, and here normally I would go straight Wild Charge, but I actually had played this trainer the day before, and they shielded my first move. So based on that knowledge, I end up going for an uncharacteristic bait, and it ends up paying off. I'm now going to fire off the Wild Charge. They don't want to double shield, and I'm going to send in the Gyarados. The switch clocks are slightly misaligned here, but I can use Gyarados as a gigantic damage sponge for all of Snorlax's energy. Snorlax firing off Body Slam number 2 here. I do not have to shield this. and I'm looking to make it to the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail not going to KO. Snorlax is extremely bulky in the Master League. Aqua Tail will connect, looking for the farm down. I can't quite get there. I will commit a shield here because I do want to preserve switch advantage. My opponent is going to let the Snorlax go, and they're just going to look for farm on the Primarina. Primarina is running Waterfall. I'm going for the Crunch here. Let's see if we can get that defense drop. Crunch will connect. We do not see the defense drop. I'm getting farm down, send in Magnezone, and it's Excadrill in the back. And this is where having Waterfall on Primarina is extremely clutch. They're going to fire off the Drill Run. I'm able to tank that, no problem. And I'm making it to the Disarming Voice before they make their second Drill Run. Again, finally having a bait move on Primarina is incredibly nice. Down goes the Excadrill, and we have a battle of Primarina. They fire off a charge move here, and that just means I win. My Primarina gets KO'd, but I get to send in the Magnezone, and honestly, I can just go straight Mirror Shot here. Opponent recognizes that fact, and they concede the match. Hopping into the next match, we see yet again another good lead. Again, Magnezone is a Pokemon that people are not really accounting for in the current meta, and that makes it really, really powerful. I'm able to fire off the Mirror Shot here. Mirror Shot will connect, and they're staying in this matchup, so it looks like, again, Magnezone is core breaking an opponent's team. They go for the Moonblast. That will hit for quite a lot of damage here. I'm farming up with the Magnezone and going for the Wild Charge. Wild Charge, I actually think, if I remember right, they live on 1 HP, so a misplay by me as now I'm forced to go down a shield. So that's definitely not how you want to play that matchup, and I'm debuffed, so I'm going to look to pivot out. They send in Gholdengo. I'm going to bring in the Waterfall Primarina. Again, Waterfall Primarina is so neutral into just about everything in this meta that it makes for a pretty nice safe switch. They go for the Shadow Ball. I'm able to tank it. I go for the Disarming Voice bait, and my opponent switches into Gyarados, and now we see why they did not switch out, because they have Gyarados in the back. I'm going to send in the Magnezone. Opponent tries to CMP, but I end up going for the extra spark. They go for the Aqua Tail. I'm looking to farm up a ton of energy with the Magnezone. No baits here. Going straight for the Wild Charge here. Do they respect it? They do not. They get KO'd. In comes the Gholdengo, and I'm at Wild Charge number 2. They have to shield this, but they are in crunch range, so I can now send in the Gyarados. Gyarados should be able to outpace the Gholdengo, as Gholdengo needs 2 Shadow Balls to win here. Shadow Ball number 1 connects, but Gyarados will be able to outpace the Gholdengo, making it to the crunch. Crunch KOs, and that's a good game. Moving into the next match, Magnezone, you guessed it, gets another positive lead. People are running teams so weak to Magnezone. They safe switch into Shadow Snorlax, and again, I'm going to fire off the Wild Charge here. I'm looking to get some damage before I switch out. Opponent shields, that's not ideal for me. I'm debuffed, so they're going to be able to get that shield back. I am going to stay in here as long as it takes to get some chip damage onto that Shadowlax. Typically, opponents only shield once if they do, so I can land the Wild Charge and then send in the Gyarados. The unfortunate thing is that our switch clocks are extremely misaligned here because they shielded. Honestly, I think if you're the opponent, probably the better play versus this team is to shield, which is what they did, because the timers are very misaligned and they can potentially take advantage of that. And you're going to see they do. My opponent saves the Snorlax for later, and now they send in the Waterfall Primarina. Aqua Tail will connect. I'm trying to make it to another move here, and I will make it to the Crunch. Crunch, of course, is also going to be resisted. It connects. We do see the defense drop, however, and I'm going to send in Magnezone. The nice thing is, Disarming Voice doesn't KO me here, so I'm actually going to let that through. I'm able to tank that. I bank the Mirror Shot, and I'm going to send in Waterfall Prima. Prima looking for the farm down here. I elect to commit the shield. I don't know what they have in the back, but I'm hoping that a full health Prima will be able to handle it. Let's see. My opponent's thinking about it here. What is that final Pokemon? And it's Excadrill. Okay, this seems doable. I'm going to be firing off the Disarming Voice here, and these waterfalls are tearing through the Exca. Exca goes for the Drill Run. Wait, I'm actually not going to make it here. I'm going to get outpaced. I'm going to be just short. I'm 5 energy short. Opponent doesn't know that. They end up switching into the Snorlax too early, and I make the Disarming Voice. Will this KO? It will not, but we combo play with the Mirror Shot. Mirror Shot KOing the Excadrill, and that's a good game. We're 4-0 in the set, needing 1 win for Legend, but we see a terrible lead. Magnezone into Haxorus. I save switch into Primarina. The Haxorus is actually staying in this matchup, so it looks like they may be running Earthquake. I'm going to let this through. Earthquake rocks the Primarina, and they send in Gholdengo. Gholdengo will be hit with the Moonblast here. Gholdengo able to tank that. I do get an attack drop from the Moonblast, however. I'm now going to send in the Magnezone. Our switch timers are very misaligned. I'm going to let this go as this is only a Shadow Ball, and I will be able to tank it. And now I'm looking to massively overfarm here and go for the Wild Charge just before they make their next Shadow Ball. They're going to let this through, and the nice thing is I leave with a Wild Charge. That's going to hit very hard onto the Glassy Haxorus. Our switch clocks are misaligned, and I'm going to take advantage of that. Going for the Wild Charge to get big chip damage, and then sending in the Gyarados to snipe with Dragon Breath. Wild Charge connects, in comes the Gyarados. We snipe it. What's in the back? It's a Metagross. Opponent concedes the match. And that is legend. We get to claim the 5-0 set here. And that is going to get us legend at 3010 elo. As you can see here, we are going to get the screenshot, the Stardust, and we get the clay style pose. All in all, I had a massive amount of fun with this team. Magnezone, even though mine was only level 49, is an absolute menace in this meta. Previously, I was running Waterfall Primarina on the lead with Gyarados and either Exca or Gholdengo as the third, and I ended up seeing a lot of opposing fairy leads that were a bit difficult for the team to handle, so we ended up making the switch to Magnezone lead, and oh my goodness, did it pay off, as people are just not prepared for the Magnezone whatsoever. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.